Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for having me here. Congratulations to all of the finalists. It sounds like it's going to be a very, very exciting day. I thought I would start with a confession of sorts. Last November, I turned 52. Woo, right? All right. What? I'm sorry? How old are you? Yeah? And you? Well, think about it. And then think about this question. How long do you think you're going to live? Chances are whatever number popped into your head, you are going to beat it. In the last 3 decades, life expectancy in this country, it has jumped tremendously. For men from 70 to 79, for women from 77 to 83. And the longer you live, the longer you're going to live. Today we know that the average 65-year-old, that's men and women together, will live to be about 84. But 1 in 4 will live past 90. 1 in 10 will live past 95. The number of Americans who are over 100 has gone up 2,200% since the year 1950. And here's the icing on the cake. In February of 2015, Time magazine declared it likely that the first person to live past 140 has already been born. What's behind all of this? What's behind all of this progress? Many different life-extending innovations. There was the tuberculosis vaccine, penicillin, blood pressure medications, the Surgeon General's warning on cigarette labels, seatbelt laws. I mean, I'm old enough that I still remember when our parents would allow us to ride in the back of the station wagon in the way back without any seatbelts at all. We had tests for inflammation in 1986, HPV vaccines. The list goes on and on and on, and so does life. Now, how many of you think that's great news? And how many of you are not so sure? Right? I get this. Because with added years come added fears. And this is where the market opportunities lie. We've got the fear that you're going to run out of money. We've got the fear that you're going to break a hip. We've got the fear that you're going to start losing your keys or that your memory will start to go. And that's why after writing 9 books about money, I took a turn and I wrote one with a doctor. And you're all getting a copy of one courtesy of AARP in the lunchroom. So what I realized was that if these additional years, these additional decades that we're going to get are going to be good ones, then we have to be age-proof. So let's define it. To be age-proof, you need to have a good grip on both your health and your finances. I wrote this book with a guy named Mike Roizen. He is the Chief Wellness Officer of the Cleveland Clinic. And what we realized was that money without health is not sustainable, and neither is the reverse. If you've got a decent financial life, a comfortable financial life, one health incident can seriously derail that. And if you are healthy, but you don't have stable finances, that may be fine when you're young, but you are not going to be able to stay healthy for very long. What's also true, and this is something we realized in the writing of this book, is that the very same strategies can improve both your health and your financial life. What Dr. Roizen and I learned is that you don't need a different toolbox for each area, and even better, when you get stronger in one area, the other tends to come along for the ride. And finally, this is something that you have to do for you. Nobody's going to do this for you. And in fact, it is more critical for us today than it has been for any generation that came before us. And it will be even more critical for our children. And here's why. Prior generations, they had pensions. They had pensions that were funded by their employers. We've got 401ks and other retirement accounts that we have to fund and then manage ourselves, which, by the way, we are not taught how to do. Prior generations had employer-provided health care. We're asked to kick in more for our health care every single year in the form of co-pays and additional premiums, health savings accounts. It has become incredibly clear, if you're following the tea leaves coming out of Washington, are only going to become more important. And while earlier generations had confidence that Social Security and Medicare would be there to fill in the gaps for them and for their kids, many people today do not. And so what I want to share this morning are some of the key principles of aging, because of age-proofing, because again, I think this is where the market opportunity lies, but I also believe this can help you improve your financial life, your health life, and protect yourself. Age-proof strategy number one, assess. Assess. Think about, what do you do every morning when you get up? What do you do? I usually roll over and check my phone. I'm sure I'm not the only one. But then you hit the treadmill, right? You hop in the shower, you brush your teeth, you fix your hair, you make the coffee, and so on and so on. And you do something else, probably many more times than once. You look in the mirror. You look in the mirror, and you do this because you know that there is value to the process of self-evaluation. You assess, you evaluate, you adjust, you do it all again. And yet, when it comes to our health, and when it comes to our finances, many of us are too frightened to even look in the mirror. This is where the process of age-proofing has to start, with a series of assessments, many of which people can do themselves. So physically, we're talking about a series of fitness tests, like being able to do an appropriate amount of sit-ups and push-ups for your age, being able to walk a mile in under 23 minutes if you're 50, or under 26 if you're in your 60s, that you can get up out of a chair without using your hands. You can feel free to try that at any time. There's also something called the tape measure test. We want to know that your waist is actually half or less of your height in inches. And Dr. Mike says it's okay to suck your stomach in while you're doing it. On the financial side, I like to start with a test called the Big Three. What do you earn? What do you own? And what do you owe? Now, over time, you want to see that the first two numbers are moving steadily upward, and that the amount of debt that you're carrying is moving downward, particularly as you head toward retirement, which is more comfortable to do if you've already retired the mortgage. Second, do you have a substantial and separate pot of cash to cover emergencies? I know financial experts like me are constantly getting on stage and telling people they must have a 3 to 6 month emergency cushion to get them through a job loss. I am far more concerned with a couple $1,000s that could get you through a roof leak, a blown transmission, or an unexpected medical bill. Third, what's your debt to income ratio? This number, although we don't talk about it all that much, is more important to your financial stability than your credit score. It's very possible to have a stellar credit score and still be well over your head in debt. So what we want to see is that no more than 28% of your gross income should be going to housing or housing-related expenses, and no more than 36% should be going to all your debts combined. This is a worrisome point right now. We've started to see in the past few years people's debt-to-income ratio heading into the 40 to 49% range. Some people are over 50%. That should send the meters going sky high. It's dangerous territory. Fourth, what's your retirement trajectory? Here's what it should look like for most people. By the time you're 30, you want to have 1 times your annual salary put away for retirement. At 43 times, at 56 times, at 68 times, and by the time you retire, 10 times. Now the point of all of this is that this money is meant to cover 45% of your pre-retirement income, and when combined with Social Security, provide enough for you to continue to live the way that you were living before retirement. You can see on this chart, if you're one of the 17% of Americans who still has a traditional pension, then you can reduce the amount that you need to save by the amount that that pension will cover. But I could tell just by looking at your eyes as I had the last slide up that it's very possible to look at those 10x numbers and think, I am not even close. That's one reason that we continually assess, to push us toward progress. Scientifically, we know that there are 2 different types of motivation. There's extrinsic motivation that comes from outside sources. It's powerful, but it's fleeting. Then there's intrinsic motivation, and that's the motivation to do something because the change itself feels good. When you start saving more, when you start paying down debt, our better numbers actually inspire us to stay on track. It's like those first 5 pounds that roll off the scale. They feel so good, they inspire you to do more. But you gotta pay attention. Assessing regularly is key. Which brings me to strategy number 2. Having the right motivation is good, but it's not enough. And it's certainly not foolproof, and you can blame your lizard brain for that. The deal with human beings is that we were created to survive the day. When a predator came to the mouth of our cave, we were programmed to kill it and eat it immediately because we weren't sure when another meal would roll around. That is the opposite of the way that we need to behave when it comes to our money. When we make a good financial decision to save for tomorrow rather than spending today, we're opting for delayed gratification rather than immediate gratification. And our brains, a lot of research has shown, don't feel particularly good about that. In recent years, scientists called neuroeconomists, they've actually started using MRIs to look at our brains in the process of making choices about money. And what they see is that when something that we want to buy comes into view, the pleasure centers in our brains, they light right up. And when we actually get the item, whatever it happens to be, and guys, doesn't have to be a shoe, we get this feel-good rush of dopamine, the pleasure chemical dopamine. The problem is that if you are forced to wait for the reward, you have to make the reward much, much larger in order to get the same amount of interest from your brain. And things that are way off in the future, like retirement, they don't light up our brains at all. That is something that this woman learned firsthand.
I'm an undesirable. No, I am. The lady at the bank said I was an unattractive candidate for a loan. Where did all my money go? I know I made some.
At $400 a pop, how many of these do you have? 50?
Come on.
100?
Would that be wrong?
100 times 400. There's your down payment.
Well, that's only $4,000.
No, it's 40,000.
I spent $40,000 on shoes and I have no place to live? I will literally be the old woman who lived in her shoes.
All right, so there are some magic bullets that can turn this scenario around. Automation and substitution. Wherever possible, you want to take the human element out of the loop by automating. This is why 401k plans work, because the money goes automatically. But you can apply it in other places as well by making automatic contributions to IRAs and HSAs and 529 college savings plans. Bills can be paid automatically so they're never late. Retirement plan accounts can be rebalanced so that they stay in the appropriate mix of investments. And the same actually works in the world of eating. If you can pick 1 or 2 breakfasts or lunches that you like enough to eat every day, you can just put those on autopilot and then you only have to think about dinner. Where you can't automate, you can substitute. Research has found breaking a bad habit doesn't work. It's very, very hard to do. What's easier is replacing a bad habit with a better habit. So that bowl of ice cream after dinner becomes a walk around the block, a walk around your neighborhood. That second glass of wine, or the third, becomes a piece of dark chocolate. The Starbucks that you buy on the way to work becomes Starbucks that you brew at home. And all the time that you spend surfing on Facebook becomes an extra hour or 2 of sleep. Not getting enough sleep, by the way, it's the antithesis of age-proofing. Getting less than 7 hours a night, it doesn't just make you tired, it causes your heart, your brain, your kidneys, even your white blood cells and your immune system to work less well. Plus, it brings on both impotence and wrinkles. I'm just saying. Age-proof strategy number 3. You want to learn to manage stress. All right, so when you think of how stressed you are, if you are anywhere close to this woman in the picture, that is both a health problem and a financial problem. And that's because stress is by far the biggest ager, and money is by far the biggest cause of stress. Let's go back to biology for just a second. The body, as you know, has 2 reactions to stress, 2 primary reactions to stress. What are they? Fight or flight, exactly. Thank you, Ken. And evolutionarily, these made sense. When, again, that predator was at the mouth of your cave, it was either going to eat you or you were going to eat it. So either you fought or you ran away, and you hoped that it didn't chase you because survival was the name of the game. Recently, though, we have put a much bigger emphasis on flight, or ways to escape our stress. We've all got our favorite forms of this: meditation, deep breathing, visual imagery, a walk in the woods, warm soak in the tub, chilled wine in the glass, child's pose, downward dog. You get the idea. And they may not seem like they're running away, but because they're all escapist, they are all forms of flight. Are they bad? No. They're fine. They will make you feel better temporarily. But when it comes to both your health and your money, flight won't ensure your survival. You actually have to fight back. And when it comes to your health, that could mean changing up your diet, training for a 10K, going on a statin. When it comes to your specific financial problems, it means developing an action plan to address your debt, to save more, to get on the right path. And this is where money is more difficult to manage than health. In the health arena, when you start to make a change, you actually can see the results fairly quickly. Financial choices and financial changes, they take longer to realize that you are on the right track. It's not like you stop spending $15 a day on lunch and your credit card debt goes away tomorrow. And it's not like you can put a little bit more money away for retirement once or twice and be assured that your nest egg is gonna hit the mark. Financial change requires more patience, more fortitude to get going, which brings me to strategy number 4. You will be far more successful in age-proofing and helping others age-proof if you don't try to do it alone. We tend to think of both our health and our financial lives as private, but private doesn't mean solo. Having people on your team makes you stronger. Now, you can read in the book about the members that you need on your health team, but the question that I am asked more often than any other is, how do I find someone to help me with my finances? So I'm just going to preempt that and tell you to gather recommendations from your colleagues better than your friends, because colleagues tend to have financial lives that are similar to yours. Schedule in-person meetings with 3 or 4 people on your short list. And while you're there, you want to get a sense of what services they provide. Financial advisors either tend to come out of the world of insurance or accounting or investing. You want to know where they're coming from, as well as whether they're going to take a holistic look at your financial life or just focus on one element in particular. What this relationship is going to cost you, because advisors get paid in very different ways. So if you can boil it down to $1, you'll be able to compare apples to apples. You also want to get a sense of whether this person is listening to what you need. If you go into a meeting with an advisor and they start telling you about all the good that they can do for you, if they're talking more than they're listening, they are not the right advisor for you or for anyone. And finally, how do you feel? You know, if you're comfortable in that room, if you're feeling as comfortable talking to this advisor as you would be talking to your doctor, then there's somebody that might be able to stay in contention. But if you can't talk openly, they may be the best advisor on the planet, but they are not the best advisor for you. The other person you should have on your team is an accountability buddy. Somebody who can just help you stay on the right track. Can be a friend, but it shouldn't be your best friend. Can be a relative, but it shouldn't be your mother. The guidelines for accountability buddies: people that you trust more than people that you like. And of course, there are many other strategies in the book, but the more of them that you incorporate, the better your health will be and the better off you'll be financially for tomorrow. And Bill Murray is going to show us why.
I like to see a man of advancing years throwing caution to the wind. It's inspiring in a way.
My years are not advancing as fast as you might think.
More coffee, huh?
Yeah, just keep it coming, please.
Sure thing.
It's real nice. Just put that anywhere, pal. Good save.
Don't you worry about cholesterol, lung cancer, love handles?
I don't worry about anything anymore.
There is a perception that the vast majority of healthcare spending goes to taking care of our elderly in the very last years of life. It's just not true. 84% of healthcare spending goes to taking care of, managing chronic diseases, and 75% of those diseases are preventable if you do just 4 basic things that are within all of our control. Avoid toxins, cigarette smoke being the number 1 on the list. Get up and move. 10,000 steps a day, great place to start. Eat foods that you love that love you back, which essentially means you just have to avoid simple sugars and syrups, stripped carbs, saturated fats, and trans fats. Everything else is fair game. And finally, do your best to reduce stress. If you follow that path, you are hedging your bets that you won't have to spend all of that disposable income on managing your chronic disease. And you go an awfully long way to solving your own personal economic crisis. And in case you're thinking that all of this is too much to tackle, I want to leave you with one short story. It's about a woman who made every financial mistake, every single one. When she received bills in the mail, she didn't open them, much less pay them. She accumulated credit card debt that was equal to a half year's salary. She never checked her credit report or her debt ratio until one time she did, and she found that there was pages of information there that did not belong to her. She pulled money out of a 401k retirement account and used it to fund a vacation and an addition to her wardrobe that she didn't need. And she ceded control of her financial life to her husband because she didn't feel like she had the ability to handle it herself. This is what she looks like. I made every one of those mistakes earlier in my life, but I learned. I got my ship back on course. More recently, I age-proofed. And what I want to leave all of you with is that if I can do this, then this is something that all of you can do as well. So thanks so much for listening to me. I appreciate it.